So we have all been there, right? You're sitting at your desk, you've got the fresh cup of coffee, the noise-canceling headphones are on.
Oh yeah, the perfect playlist going.
Exactly. The software is open, the conditions are just optimal, and yet you are literally just staring at the screen.
Just waiting.
Right. You're waiting for this like elusive, magical wave of energy to wash over you. You're waiting to actually feel motivated before you strike the first key.
Which is such a universally frustrating paralysis, honestly.
It really is. So you just sit and you wait and absolutely nothing happens. Well, except maybe the creeping sensation of guilt, you know?
Yeah, guilt and that feeling that the day is just a wash. We tend to treat motivation like it's the weather.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. We look out the window of our own psychology, hoping it's a sunny day for our productivity. And if it's raining, if we feel sluggish or resistant, we just surrender our agency to a mood.
Which is exactly why the sources we are looking at for today's deep dive are so crucial. Because we are basically tearing down this whole idea of motivation as this fleeting, unpredictable feeling.
It's a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah. The materials we've gathered outline a masterclass on they call it the architecture of daily drive. And the mission here is to shift you from being a passive recipient of ambition into an active engineer of it.
And that shift, that move from passive to active, that is the core of the entire philosophy we're looking at today.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can build a reliable system for getting things done, the sources are adamant that we have to demolish the faulty foundation we currently rely on.
Yes, and that foundation is the wait for the spark.
The idea that I have to feel inspired to act.
Precisely. The source material flips that completely on its head. It introduces this physiological and psychological reality that, it takes a minute to fully internalize, honestly.
Because it's so counterintuitive.
Exactly. The principle is that motivation is not a prerequisite for action. It is the consequence of it. Action must precede motivation.
When you look at it that way, waiting for the spark is completely backward. It's like sitting in a freezing cold car in the bed of winter.
Right.
You're gripping the steering wheel and refusing to actually turn the key and drive until the heater magically warms you up.
That's a perfect analogy. You can't just sit there.
The engine has to run to create the warmth. You have to put the car in drive and hit the gas to generate the heat you are sitting there waiting for.
The warmth is the byproduct of the engine doing work, yes. And neurologically, the human brain operates on the exact same principle.
Really? So it's not just a mindset thing?
Not at all. When you are sitting at that desk waiting for a feeling, your brain is in this energy conservation mode. It's highly efficient and totally resistant to expending metabolic energy on a difficult task.
So it's basically hoarding energy.
Exactly. The feeling of motivation you are waiting for is essentially a state of neurochemical arousal. You cannot just think your way into that state while remaining physically and cognitively static.
So by waiting for the feeling, I'm actually guaranteeing the feeling never arrives.
You are locking yourself in a passive state.
Yeah.
But when you force the action, you create friction.
And the friction wakes up the brain.
Yes. That friction forces the brain to allocate resources, increase your heart rate, and release neurotransmitters like dopamine and adrenaline.
Okay, so you don't wait for the will to act, you act to generate the will.
That is the cornerstone of this entire motivational architecture.
Okay. I understand the mechanics of the engine now, but that brings us to the obvious friction point in real life.
The reality of actually doing it.
Yeah. If action has to come first, how on earth do you force yourself to turn the key when your resistance is at an absolute peak?
It's tough.
It is. When the idea of writing that report or, putting on those running shoes feels almost physically painful, knowing that action precedes motivation doesn't automatically make the action easy.
No, it doesn't. And this is where we get into the tactical side of things, specifically the strategy of micro-commitments.
Like atomic habits.
Exactly like atomic habits. The objective is to make the initial step laughably small. You want to make the action so completely devoid of friction that it requires zero activation energy.
Okay, give me an example from the sources.
Well, if your goal is to learn a language, your commitment isn't to study for an hour. Your commitment is just to open the app.
Just open it.
Just open it.
Yeah.
Or if you need to write a daunting report, you commit to writing a single sentence.
Okay, but come on, let me push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because we need to talk about the reality of this. We've all heard the make it small advice, but honestly, if I am staring down a 50-page technical document, writing one single sentence doesn't actually solve my problem.
It doesn't finish the report, no.
Right. I write the sentence, I put a period at the end of it, and the mountain is still right there in front of me. I mean, it sounds like we're just tricking ourselves. My brain knows the rest of the report is waiting.
What's fascinating here is that it isn't really about tricking your brain into thinking the mountain doesn't exist. It is about overriding the brain's initiation threshold. The what?
The initiation threshold. See, the highest concentration of cognitive resistance, the peak of that physical pain you mentioned, occurs in the moments right before a task begins.
Oh, because that's when you're anticipating the work.
Yes. Your amygdala perceives this massive project as a literal threat to your energy reserves. But by reducing the commitment to a single sentence, you bypass the amygdala's threat response.
Okay, wow, so it's a physiological override.
It is. But more importantly, taking that minuscule action creates what psychologists call a cognitive ripple effect.
A cognitive ripple.
Yeah. Completing even a trivial task provides a microdose of dopamine. And that dopamine doesn't just make you feel good, it chemically lowers the threshold for the next action.
So it builds on itself.
Exactly. Once the textbook is open, your brain observes your behavior and updates its state. It says, well, the app is open, I might as well do one lesson.
Okay, I see. The momentum shifts from overcoming dread to maintaining velocity.
Sure, I can see how a ripple gets me to write sentence 2, maybe even sentence 3. But what happens at sentence 20 when the cognitive friction spikes again?
When it starts getting really hard.
Yeah, the work gets hard. I can't just rely on the momentum of opening the laptop to carry me through a 4-hour deep work session.
You raise a really vital point. The micro-commitment is the ignition. It's not the fuel tank.
Right, it just turns the engine over.
Exactly. But to sustain the velocity without constantly burning through your reserves of willpower, you have to move to the next layer of the architecture. And this is where the sources focus heavily on environmental design.
Which totally makes sense, because relying on willpower alone is a losing game. Willpower is finite.
Highly finite. And it's highly susceptible to cognitive load. If you are using your daily reserve of willpower just to fight off the distractions in your own office, I mean, you are bankrupting your energy before the actual work even begins.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It makes me think of chemistry, actually. Specifically the concept of activation energy.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, so in a chemical reaction, you have this boulder, and you have to push it up and over a steep hill before it can roll down the other side and react.
Right.
When we rely on willpower to overcome a bad environment, we are basically choosing to push a heavy boulder up a 45-degree incline every single morning.
Which is exhausting.
Right. So what environmental design does is it brings in a bulldozer. You flatten the landscape so the boulder just naturally rolls forward.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You are manipulating the activation energy of your daily choices.
Proactively bulldozing the friction.
Yes. You bulldoze the friction for your positive behaviors, and you build massive hills in front of your negative ones.
So what are some practical examples from the sources?
They offer some really subtle ones. For instance, if your goal is to read a difficult book, it shouldn't be tucked away on a shelf. It should be resting squarely on your pillow when you make your bed.
Oh, wait, so I literally have to pick the book up and move it to go to sleep.
Yes, the visual cue is unavoidable.
It's just sitting there staring at you.
And the activation energy to read it is effectively zero because you are already holding it.
Right.
Conversely, if you need deep, uninterrupted focus, leaving your smartphone face down on the desk is a failure of environmental design.
Wait, really? Even if it's on silent?
Even if it's powered completely off.
Oh, way.
Yes. The sources point out that the mere visual presence of the phone on the desk requires your brain to actively suppress the urge to check it.
So I'm burning cognitive fuel just to ignore it.
Exactly. The activation energy to flip it over is just too low. The phone needs to be in another room entirely. Environmental design is about engineering your space so that doing the right thing takes absolutely zero willpower.
You make the desired behavior the path of least resistance.
Exactly.
Okay, so if I bulldoze the hill and optimize my room, it sounds mathematically foolproof. I use a micro commitment to bypass the amygdala, I remove the phone so my cognitive load is zero, and I get to work.
In theory, yes.
But human nature guarantees that eventually I'm going to sit on my perfectly placed textbook and walk into the other room to doom scroll anyway.
Oh, inevitably.
This system is going to break. So what happens then?
It will definitely break. No behavioral architecture is flawless because human beings are not algorithms. But the sources highlight that the real divergence between amateur and advanced productivity isn't whether or not the system breaks.
What is it then?
It is how you interpret the breakage.
Let me guess, the default interpretation is usually guilt.
Intense moral judgment, yeah. When we fail to execute a habit or we fall into distraction, our default psychological response is self-criticism.
We label ourselves lazy.
We assume we lack discipline. But neurologically, shame and self-criticism are terrible motivators. They spike cortisol, which increases stress, which actually drives you to seek out cheap dopamine.
Like scrolling on your phone.
Yes, to soothe the negative emotion you just caused by judging yourself.
Wow. So beating myself up for procrastinating literally causes more procrastination.
It fuels the exact cycle you were trying to escape.
That is wild.
So the advanced approach detailed in the sources is to fundamentally reframe the setback.
Aha!
You must strip away the emotional weight and view the failure simply as a data point.
A data point. Meaning, I need to stop acting like a judge in a courtroom handing down a moral sentence and start acting like a scientist running an experiment in a lab.
The transition from judge to scientist is critical here. Think about the operational difference between those two roles.
Right. A judge is just looking to assign blame.
Exactly. You failed. You are guilty. You lack character. But a scientist looks at an unexpected result, like an experiment that blew up in their face, and they don't take it personally.
They just get curious.
Right. They say, well, that is fascinating. Why did the beaker explode? Let's isolate the variables.
It's a great analogy, but let's talk about the friction of actually doing that in real life.
It's not easy.
No. It is incredible. Right. So how do we practically override the judge and become the scientist in the moment of failure?
You do it by forcing your brain out of the emotional centers and into the analytical centers. And you do that by asking targeted diagnostic questions.
Diagnostic questions. Okay.
The sources outline a framework for this. Instead of asking, what is wrong with me? You ask, why did the system break down today?
Oh, I like that.
Was my initial micro-commitment actually too big for my current energy level? Was there a new variable in my environment that I didn't account for? Did I sleep poorly, limiting my cognitive reserves?
I see. So if I skip my workout, I don't say, I am a lazy person who can't stick to anything.
Right. No moral judgment.
I say, I tried to work out at 6 p.m. after 10 hours of meetings, and my metabolic energy was depleted. Tomorrow, the variable I will change is moving the workout to 7 a.m.
Yes. You are looking at the mechanics, not the morality. Approaching setbacks with deep curiosity rather than criticism provides you with actionable intelligence. It keeps you engaged in the process.
Because you aren't defensive.
Exactly. When you judge yourself, the psychological instinct is to quit entirely to escape the feeling of shame. But when you analyze the data, your instinct is simply to tweak the parameters of the experiment and try again tomorrow.
Okay, that perfectly covers the daily mechanics. We know how to start the engine with microactions. Yep. We know how to clear the road with environmental design, and we know how to diagnose the engine when it stalls without, setting the whole car on fire with guilt.
Exactly.
But we need to address the long-term picture now. What is the actual fuel? What keeps this system running over the span of months or years, long after the novelty of a new routine has worn off?
That brings us to the final and perhaps most vital piece of the architecture. It comes down to the classification of the fuel you are burning.
Okay.
The sources draw a very sharp, well-researched distinction between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation.
Right. I think we all know the basics here. Extrinsic motivators are external rewards or punishments, like money, grades, praise from a boss.
Or the sheer panic of an impending deadline.
Oh yeah, that one works well for a minute.
And that's the thing. While extrinsic motivators are incredibly effective at generating short-term spikes in activity, they are entirely transient.
So they don't last.
Right. The moment the deadline passes or the bonus is paid out, the behavioral drive just vanishes. The engine starves. To sustain action over years, the fuel must be intrinsic.
Meaning it comes from within.
Yes. This is the drive that stems from the inherent satisfaction of the activity itself, from how it aligns with your deepest sense of identity and your core values.
Okay, but let's deal with the reality of that too. Because it is easy to have intrinsic motivation for a hobby you love, but what about the listener who is slogging through something they absolutely do not want to do?
That's a very common reality.
Right. Maybe they are studying for a mind-numbing compliance certification or doing endless repetitive data entry at an entry-level job. There is zero inherent joy in that spreadsheet. How do you find an intrinsic anchor for a fundamentally boring task?
That is the edge case the sources specifically address, and it requires a technique called identity bridging.
Identity bridging?
Yes, because the reality is you cannot magically manufacture inherent joy for a spreadsheet, but you can connect the friction of completing that spreadsheet to the specific type of person you are attempting to become.
Okay, give me an example of how that actually works.
The material uses the example of learning a difficult, complex language.
Okay.
If your only reason for studying the grammar is to pass a standardized test next month, that is extrinsic. Every study session will feel like a miserable slog.
Just a means to an end.
Right. But if you shift the focus away from the test and anchor the daily habit to a broader identity, if you tell yourself, I am mastering this grammar because I am committed to becoming a more globally minded, highly articulate, and culturally empathetic individual.
Oh, wow. The dynamic totally changes.
It changes everything.
So the anchor isn't the task itself. The anchor is the psychological trait that the difficult task is forcing me to develop.
Exactly. You are synthesizing meaning out of the mundane. You aren't just doing data entry. You are building the capacity for deep focus and meticulous execution.
Which are traits a future executive or entrepreneur requires.
Exactly. You bridge the gap between the micro commitment and the macro identity. That deeper purpose, that alignment with who you are evolving into, is an infinite wellspring of drive. You can draw from it indefinitely, long after the external rewards have faded.
That is a really profound way to look at the daily grind. Let me quickly synthesize this for the listener because there is a massive amount of actionable insight here.
Absolutely, lay it out.
We are completely abandoning the waiting room. Action generates the neurochemical feeling of motivation, not the other way around.
Start the car.
Start the car! We bypass our brain's resistance by using micro-commitments to trigger a cognitive ripple. We bulldoze the friction in our daily lives through ruthless environmental design.
Bulldoze the hill.
When we inevitably mess up, we drop the moral judgment and view the failure as neutral data to be analyzed like a scientist. And finally, we sustain the entire architecture by anchoring even our most tedious tasks to the long-term identity we're building.
It is a incredibly resilient, scientifically grounded system. But before we wrap up today's deep dives, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, specifically regarding the environments we just discussed.
Okay, let's hear it.
We talked about how your physical surroundings dictate your cognitive load and your path of least resistance.
Right, the bulldozed hill.
Right. So wherever you are listening to this right now, take a real, honest look at the room you are sitting in. Look at the objects on your desk, at the tabs open on your monitor, the proximity of your devices.
Ah, man.
If your environment dictates your automatic behaviors, what is this specific room secretly begging you to do? Is the visual layout begging you to scroll? Is it begging you to zone out? Look at the cues and ask yourself, is the behavior this room is engineered for the behavior you actually want?
That is a phenomenal, slightly terrifying question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. You have the blueprints now. Go construct your motivated self, action by action, starting today. We will catch you on the next one. You know, right now, you are currently losing a political election inside your own brain.
Well, that is a fairly terrifying thought to start with.
Right. But I mean, think about it. Every time you skip a workout or every time you hit snooze in the morning.
Oh, yeah. The snooze button is a big one.
It really is. Or like every time you decide you'll tackle that massive language learning project, you know, tomorrow.
Which always means never.
Exactly. When you do those things, you are basically casting a ballot for the exact person you don't want to be.
You're voting for the opposition party.
Yes, you are voting for the opposition party. So today we are looking at the advanced architecture of human motivation.
Which is such a fascinating subject.
It really is, and we are going to show you exactly how to rig that internal election in your favor. So, welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
Today we're extracting like the most potent structural strategies from a really incredible masterclass.
But one focused on architecting daily motivation, right?
That's the one. And what I love about the source material is that we're moving completely past the foundational stuff.
Yeah, the basic what and why of productivity.
Right. Like we are assuming you, the listener, already know your purpose. You already know your goals.
You've got all that sorted out.
Exactly. Today is exclusively about the how. Like, how do we actively manufacture drive on demand?
Rather than just waiting around for the neurological weather to clear up.
Yes, the weather metaphor. I love how the masterclass framed that.
It's so accurate, though, because the premise of architecting motivation is profound.
How so?
Well, it forces us to basically discard that romantic notion of the muse.
Oh, right. Like this magical fairy that just taps you on the shoulder?
Exactly. We treat motivation like it's this spontaneous magical occurrence, like a weather event.
Like, ooh, I hope motivation strikes today.
Right. But if you look at, really prolific individuals across any discipline at all.
The people who are just constantly producing great work.
Yeah, they aren't relying on spontaneity. They don't have, like, better neurological weather than the rest of us.
You just have umbrellas.
Well, more like they have built a highly engineered, climate-controlled environment in their minds.
Oh, I like that. Climate control.
Yeah, they have constructed mechanisms that operate entirely independently of their daily mood.
That distinction right there, mechanisms that operate independent of mood, that is exactly what we need to unpack today.
Because it's so necessary.
It really is, because the sheer volume of cognitive friction we face every single day, I mean, it's just staggering.
It really is exhausting.
So let's look at the first strategy we pulled from these materials. It addresses the most immediate visceral problem.
Tasks we find fundamentally repulsive.
Yes, the stuff we just do not want to do, the rote memorization, data entry, endless household chores.
Of the dreaded chores, right?
And the method the source outlines here is termed temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling, it's a great term.
It is, but I want to get past the basic definition of just, pairing a want with a need.
Because we all know what a bribe is.
Exactly. A bribe is simple, but what is actually happening at a neurobiological level when we attempt this?
So, to understand why temptation bundling is more than just like a behavioral bribe, we have to look at the brain's reward prediction error mechanism.
Okay, reward prediction error. Break that down for us.
Well, it's driven heavily by the methylyl pathway, which is our primary dopamine circuit.
Right, the dopamine, the feel-good chemical.
Exactly. So when you anticipate a task, let's say organizing a massive spreadsheet or reviewing language flashcards.
Two very painful tasks.
Right. Your brain actually calculates the required energy expenditure against the immediate payoff.
It runs a little cost-benefit analysis.
Yes, automatically. And for these types of tasks, the immediate payoff is, well, it's virtually zero.
Because the payoff is weeks or months away, right? Like getting a good performance review or finally speaking French.
Exactly. So your brain's algorithm registers a massive deficit.
Oh.
Yeah. It signals a lack of dopamine, which you experience consciously as friction.
Or boredom, or that overwhelming urge to just, pick up your phone.
Right, because checking the phone provides an immediate, albeit shallow, dopamine spike.
So we grab the phone to fix the deficit.
Precisely. So temptation bundling intercepts this algorithm.
Ow.
By strictly pairing a highly desirable, dopamine-rich activity with the high-friction task.
The source material gives some great examples here.
Yeah, like listening to a gripping true crime audio series.
Right, or drinking a highly specific premium pour-over coffee.
Exactly. By pairing those, you are hacking the reward prediction error.
Because you're getting the dopamine right now.
Yes. You are artificially front-loading the dopamine release.
Okay, let me unpack this with an analogy.
Go for it.
It feels like when a parent hides like spinach or vegetables inside a delicious fruit smoothie for a toddler.
That is actually a perfect analogy.
Right. You're basically tricking your own brain's reward center to drive productive behavior.
You are. The brain initially engages in the bundle for the coffee or the audio series.
It wants the smoothie. It doesn't care about the spinach.
Right. But over time, an associative link is forged.
Okay, an associative link.
Yeah. The basal ganglia, which handles our habit formation, begins to recognize the spreadsheet or the flashcards as the actual cue for the reward.
That's wild. There's a quote from the source that says, I employ temptation bundling to link my obligations with my indulgences, creating a self-reinforcing system.
Self-reinforcing system. That's the key phrase.
It really is. I marveled at that phrase. But let me push back on this associative link for a second.
Sure. What's the hang-up?
Think about classical conditioning, right?
Like Pavlov's dogs.
Exactly. So if I take something I love, let's stick with a really fantastic, expensive coffee.
Okay, great cop.
And I force myself to only drink it while I'm doing my absolute least favorite task. Let's say doing my taxes.
Sounds miserable.
Right. Doesn't the associative link run in the wrong direction eventually?
How do you mean?
Like, doesn't the misery of the taxes eventually pollute the coffee?
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, my brain will start to realize, oh, great, the tax coffee is here, time to be miserable. The spinach ruins the smoothie.
That's a highly sophisticated objection, actually.
Well, thank you.
And it touches on a very real phenomenon called counter-conditioning.
Counter-conditioning, okay.
If the aversion to the task is exponentially higher than the pleasure of the reward, yes.
So the bad outweighs the good.
Right. The negative valence will overpower the positive one. The coffee basically becomes a signal of impending doom.
Exactly. The tax coffee of doom. So how do we stop that from happening?
Well, the architecture of a successful temptation bundle relies on two critical factors to prevent this.
What's the first one?
First, the reward must be sufficiently potent.
So it can't just be a mediocre coffee. It has to be something you genuinely crave.
Right. And second, and honestly, this is where most people fail, the contingency must be absolute.
Absolute contingency, meaning I can literally never, ever drink that specific coffee under any other circumstances.
Never.
Wow. Not even on a Sunday morning reading a book.
Not if it's your tax coffee. The exclusivity of the reward creates artificial scarcity.
Because if I can get the coffee easily later, why would I do the taxes?
Exactly. If your brain knows it can get that specific dopamine hit later while lounging on the couch, the bundle collapses.
The brain is smart. It'll just wait.
Yep. The brain will always choose the path of least resistance to the reward.
So by making it strictly contingent, you're backing it into a corner.
You corner your own neurobiology. You are essentially telling your brain, you want this specific pleasure. The only toll bridge is through this spreadsheet.
The toll bridge, that makes so much sense.
And because the brain is highly adaptable, it stops fighting the spreadsheet and starts viewing it as a necessary part of the reward acquisition process.
It even becomes acceptable.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's the only path to the reward.
Okay, so the exclusivity is what protects the reward from being polluted by the task. I get that.
It's a very elegant system when you commit to it.
It is, but this brings up a logistical issue for me.
What's that?
Well, temptation bundling sounds incredibly effective for, isolated, localized friction.
Short-term tasks.
Right. I can bundle my laundry with a podcast. I can bundle my morning emails with a pastry.
Sure.
But I can't bundle my way into writing a 400-page dissertation.
No, you definitely cannot.
Or I can't bundle my way into learning fluent Mandarin over 3 years. The novelty of the reward would just inevitably wear off.
You'd get sick of the coffee eventually.
Exactly. So how do we transition from manipulating an afternoon to architecting a decade?
You've correctly identified the limitation of the bundle. It is a micro-tactic.
A micro-tactic.
Yeah. It initiates movement, but it doesn't sustain a long-term trajectory.
So what's the macro-tactic?
To do that, the source material indicates we need a profound shift in our temporal focus.
Temporal focus. So how we look at time.
Right. We have to fundamentally reevaluate how we process ambition.
Okay.
By prioritizing system-oriented thinking over goal-oriented thinking.
Okay, now I have to stop you there because we need to really interrogate this.
I figured you'd have thoughts on this one.
I do, because we live in a society, especially a corporate and academic society, that is just fanatically obsessed with goals.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, KPIs, OKRs, quarterly targets, 5-year plans, everything is outcome-driven.
At how we measure success.
Right. And the materials we are analyzing today are essentially arguing that staring at the goal is not just unhelpful,
but actively detrimental.
Yes, actively detrimental to daily motivation. That sounds crazy to most people.
It sounds counterintuitive, but it is actively detrimental because of a psychological phenomenon known as the planning fallacy.
The planning fallacy.
Yes, coupled with our deep susceptibility to temporal discounting.
Okay, break that down for us. Temporal discounting.
Temporal discounting means the human brain struggles to properly value rewards that are far in the future.
Like saving for retirement.
Exactly. We vastly prefer a small reward today over a massive reward 3 years from now.
Right. A candy bar now is better than $1 million when I'm 80. At least to the monkey part of my brain.
Exactly. So when you set a massive goal, let's use the example from the text. I will be conversationally fluent in Mandarin by 2028.
A great goal, but a huge one.
You are setting a reward so far in the future that your midbrain essentially ignores it.
It just can't compute a reward that's years away.
Right. And furthermore, every single day you wake up and you are not fluent in Mandarin, your brain registers a failure state.
Oh man, that was brutal.
It is. You are constantly measuring the massive, agonizing gap between your current reality and your desired outcome.
You're living in a perpetual state of deficit.
Yes.
It's like looking at the peak of a mountain from the base camp.
That's a perfect image.
Right. The sheer scale of what you haven't done yet is just paralyzing.
Precisely. And that paralysis is what kills daily motivation.
Because you just feel like, what's the point? I'm so far away.
Exactly. So the proposed solution in our masterclass is the system.
Systems over goals.
Right. A goal is the future outcome. A system is the localized, repeatable process.
Okay, let's look at the mechanics of this shift.
By focusing entirely on a system, say, I will engage in 20 minutes of active language shadowing every morning at 7 a.m.
Okay, a very specific system.
By doing that, you completely bypass temporal discounting.
Because the success is no longer 3 years away.
Exactly.
The success is at 7 on 20 today.
Yes. You shrink the timeline of success to a 24-hour window.
That feels so much more manageable.
It is. The text we are analyzing asserts something pretty radical here.
What's that?
It says that if you execute the system, you have definitively succeeded for that day.
Period. End of story.
Period. It completely decouples your emotional state and your sense of accomplishment from the distant outcome.
So the dopamine release shifts from being outcome-oriented to process-oriented.
Exactly. You get the neurochemical reward simply for executing the behavior.
Regardless of the immediate measurable result. Like whether I actually learned a new word or not, doing the 20 minutes was the win.
Yes.
Okay, I understand the psychological relief of that. Shrinking the horizon stops the panic.
It stops the overwhelm.
But let me argue the other side of this.
Please do.
If I completely detach myself from the goal, if I stop caring about the peak of the mountain and only look at the 3 feet in front of me,
Right.
don't I risk wandering aimlessly? I mean, if an entire company stops looking at its quarterly targets and only focuses on daily processes, they might execute those processes flawlessly right off a cliff.
That is a very fair point.
Doesn't abandoning the goal entirely mean abandoning ambition?
That is the most common vulnerability people feel in this transition.
It feels like settling.
But it stems from a misunderstanding of how goals and systems actually interact in this framework.
How so?
You aren't abandoning the goal, you are relegating it to its proper function.
Relegating it. Okay.
Yeah, the masterclass puts it beautifully. A goal is a compass, not an engine.
Oh, I really like that. The goal just points at the wheel.
Exactly. You need the compass to determine your initial heading.
So I still need to know I want to go north.
Right. You use the goal of Mandarin fluency to design the daily 20-minute shadowing system in the first place.
I wouldn't have built the system without the goal.
Exactly. But once the system is designed and the heading is set, staring at the compass doesn't actually move you forward.
Oh, right.
If you spend the entire journey staring at the compass in your hand, you'll trip over a root and break your ankle.
You have to look at the path.
Yes. The system is the combustion engine. It requires your absolute, unbroken focus to operate smoothly.
So you don't throw the compass away.
No, you check the compass periodically, maybe once a quarter or once a month, to ensure you haven't drifted.
But daily.
Daily, you focus exclusively on the integrity of the engine.
The integrity of the engine. You know, that ties perfectly into a specific phrase from our source materials that really caught my attention.
Which phrase was that?
The author writes about executing today's process with integrity.
Yes, a very powerful line.
When I first read that, I thought integrity was a really strange word choice.
Because of the moral connotation?
Yeah, exactly. We usually associate integrity with morality or ethics, like being honest.
Right.
But in this context, structural integrity makes much more sense.
It's absolutely about structural integrity.
Like a bridge having integrity.
Exactly. It means executing the 20 minutes without cutting corners.
Without checking your phone at minute 12.
Without passively listening instead of actively shadowing.
So giving it your full effort.
Because if the 20 minutes is your entire universe of success for that day, the quality of those 20 minutes must be uncompromising.
The integrity of the system is everything.
Yes.
So, okay, let's recap where we are. We use temptation bundling to overcome the immediate friction of getting started.
The micro tactic.
Right. And we use systems to isolate our focus and guarantee daily localized success.
The macro tactic.
That covers the what and the when of our daily actions. But we haven't touched the deepest layer yet.
The real core of it all.
Because if systems dictate our actions, what dictates the systems?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, why does one person build a system to learn Mandarin, while another builds a system to master chess, and someone else builds a system to scroll social media for 4 hours a day?
Now we are drilling down to the bedrock.
The foundation.
The ultimate driver of all systems, the absolute most potent form of human motivation, is identity.
Identity.
Yes. The central argument we found across these materials is that the highest level of behavioral engineering occurs when an action stops being something you do.
And becomes a manifestation of who you are.
Exactly, the shift from doing to becoming.
We see this trap everywhere, don't we? People constantly frame their ambitions externally.
All the time.
Like, I am trying to learn a language, or I am trying to get fit, I am trying to write a book.
The syntax there is incredibly revealing.
Their word trying.
Yes. The word trying linguistically separates the individual from the action.
It's like you're holding it at arm's length.
Right. It frames the behavior as a foreign object, a temporary struggle against their true natural state.
Ah, so their true state is not a writer, but they are trying to write.
Exactly. And as long as you view yourself as a lazy person who is just trying to be productive, your brain will constantly seek ways to revert to its baseline identity.
Why does it do that?
Because the brain actively seeks cognitive consistency.
Okay, cognitive consistency. Meaning, if my internal narrative is, let's say, I'm not a math person.
A very common one.
Right. But I'm currently trying to study statistics. My brain will actually sabotage the study session just to prove my internal narrative right.
Precisely.
It is messed up.
It's an extension of cognitive dissonance theory.
Oh, right. We hate holding two conflicting beliefs.
Exactly. If your actions contradict your deeply held self-concept, it creates massive psychological stress.
So it's easier to just stop studying and be the non-math person again.
Yes. Most people try to use sheer willpower to force their actions to change while leaving their core identity completely intact.
Which is exhausting.
It's unsustainable. The architecture we are discussing today proposes the exact opposite.
Change the identity first.
Yes, you must ruthlessly and deliberately construct a new identity first and allow the actions to follow as a natural consequence.
The source material suggests adopting a highly specific, almost elevated self-concept.
It does.
Instead of saying, I'm a person trying to learn, you adopt the identity of an intellectual, a lifelong learner, a polyglot in training.
Polyglot in training. It sounds powerful.
It does, but this is where I really struggle, and I know a lot of our listeners will too.
Where's the friction for you?
Honestly, it feels like delusional self-help speak. It feels like that fake it till you make it stuff, which frankly my brain completely rejects.
It feels inauthentic.
Totally. If I know exactly 3 words of Spanish and I look in the mirror and declare I am a polyglot in training,
Your brain isn't buying it.
my brain immediately calls my bluff. It knows I'm lying.
Right.
So how do we bypass the brain's internal truth detector? How do we adopt an identity without feeling like a total fraud?
That is the perfect question, because your brain's truth detector is actually the key to this entire mechanism.
Really?
Yes. You are entirely correct that affirmations without evidence are completely useless.
Thank you. I hate those mirror affirmations.
Your brain operates on an empirical algorithm.
Meaning it needs proof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It determines who you are based strictly on the data of your past behavior.
The data.
Which brings us back to the hook you used at the very beginning of this deep dive.
The internal political election.
Right. The idea that every action is a vote.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
The reason you feel like a fraud calling yourself a polyglot in training is because your brain has already tallied the votes.
And I'm losing.
You might have 0 votes for language learner, but you have 10,000 historical votes for a person who watches TV after work.
The opposition party has a massive, undeniable majority in my psyche.
Exactly. So how do you flip the election?
I'm guessing not by standing in front of a mirror and lying to myself.
No, you do it by casting undeniable, empirical votes.
Meaning every time I complete that 20-minute daily system, I'm casting a ballot.
Exactly.
But wait, if I have 10,000 votes for watching TV and I cast 1 vote for studying Spanish today, I'm still losing 10,000 to 1.
Mathematically, yes. But here is the crucial neurological nuance.
Okay.
The brain suffers from recency bias in its self-perception algorithm.
Recency bias.
It weights recent votes far more heavily than historical ones.
Wait, really?
Yes.
So the 10,000 votes for watching TV can actually be overridden by a much smaller number of recent votes for studying.
Yes, if, and this is a big if, those recent votes are consistent and unbroken.
Oh, wow.
This is rooted in self-perception theory, which was originally developed by psychologist Daryl Bem.
Daryl Bem. Okay, what does the theory say?
The theory states that we determine our own attitudes and preferences by observing our own behavior, much like an outside observer would.
So I watch myself doing things, and that's how I know who I am.
Exactly. If you wake up every day for 30 days and study for 20 minutes, your brain observes this behavior.
It's watching me cast those 30 votes.
Right. It looks at the empirical data, 30 consecutive recent votes, and it updates the model.
It actually shifts its belief.
It concludes, well, regardless of what we used to do, the current data strongly suggests we are, in fact, a lifelong learner.
That is incredibly empowering.
It really is.
It means you don't need to cross some distant finish line to earn the identity.
Not at all.
You don't need a certificate of fluency. The very act of engaging in the daily system gives you the empirical right to claim that identity today.
The action is the evidence.
The action is the evidence. I love that.
And once that identity tips the scales, motivation changes fundamentally.
How does it change?
It stops being transactional.
Transactional motivation, meaning like doing X to achieve Y.
Exactly. I will study so I can pass this test.
Right.
Transactional motivation is incredibly fragile because the moment the transaction is complete, or say, the test is canceled.
The motivation just evaporates. There's no reason to do it anymore.
Exactly. But identity-based motivation is affirming.
Affirming.
You do X because you are Y.
I study because I am a learner.
Yes.
I run because I am a runner. It just becomes baseline behavior.
Right. You don't need to hype yourself up to brush your teeth, do you?
Well, most days, no.
Because your identity is a person with basic hygiene.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal is to make the productive system as deeply embedded as brushing your teeth.
Exactly. But, as we know, human behavior is messy.
Very messy.
The election's actually never over.
Right. You have to keep voting.
You can build the most elegant architecture you have. Your identity fueling your systems, and your temptation bundle smoothing the friction.
It all sounds perfect on paper.
But reality will eventually strike.
It always does.
You will get sick. There will be a family emergency. You will have a day where you are simply too exhausted, and the system will fail.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most critical structural strategy in our deep dive today.
The safety net.
Right. How do we ensure this entire meticulously constructed architecture doesn't just collapse the first time there's an earthquake?
How do we handle failure?
Exactly. The materials focus heavily on something called the visual imperative.
Yes, specifically tracking and reflection.
So to understand the power of visual tracking, we have to look at how the brain processes progress.
And open loops.
Right. The source advocates for maintaining a highly visible analog record of consistency.
Like marking a prominent X on a physical wall calendar for every completed daily system.
Creating a continuous visual chain. But my question is, why analog?
It's a valid question in today's world.
Right. In an era where we have 100 apps on our phone just to track habits, why does the physical X on a wall matter?
Because an app is hidden.
Hidden?
Yeah.
True.
It requires an active initiation from you to actually open it and view the data.
Which means if I'm feeling lazy, I just won't open the app.
Exactly. But a physical calendar on the wall of your office or your bedroom, that is a passive, constant environmental cue.
You can't escape it.
It forces engagement. As you build that chain of X's, you are creating a visual manifestation of your empirical votes.
It's the proof staring back at you.
But more importantly, you are leveraging the Zeigarnik effect and loss aversion.
Okay, big terms. Let's break those down. The Zeigarnik effect first.
The Zeigarnik effect is a psychological principle stating that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks much better than completed ones.
Like when a song gets stuck in your head because you didn't hear the ending.
Exactly like that. So an unbroken chain of 15 X's on a calendar is perceived by the brain as an open, ongoing sequence.
A pattern?
Yes. The brain desperately wants to close the gap and maintain the pattern.
It craves completion.
Right. So if you skip day 16, you leave a glaring physical blank space.
And the brain hates that interruption.
It creates massive psychological friction against laziness.
Okay, and this is amplified by the second thing you mentioned, loss aversion.
Yes. Loss aversion is the cognitive bias, where the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining it.
Losing $50 hurts more than finding $50 feels good.
Exactly. When you have a 30-day streak, you possess something valuable. The streak itself.
You've invested in it.
The thought of breaking the chain and losing that 30-day investment is intensely painful.
So on a day when your temptation bundle isn't working,
And your identity feels shaky.
the sheer desire not to lose the visual chain will often be the ultimate backstop that forces you to execute the system.
It is the ultimate fail-safe mechanism.
Okay, but here is where I see this backfire spectacularly.
Oh,
And I think we really need to talk about the dark side of tracking.
let's hear it.
I see people use this visual tracking and they build like a 45-day streak.
They're doing great.
They feel invincible, but then life happens. They get a severe flu.
Or a crisis at work.
Right. They physically cannot execute the system, so the chain breaks.
It's inevitable.
And what happens next? They experience the what the hell effect.
The absolute collapse of the architecture.
Yes. They look at the broken chain, the streak is reset to 0, and they just spiral.
They think, well, the streak is ruined. I am a failure.
What's the point of starting over? What the hell? I might as well just quit.
It's a very dangerous mental trap.
The tracking mechanism, which was designed to be a supportive scaffold, becomes a weapon they use to bludgeon their own identity.
The missed day becomes a massive vote for the opposition party.
And they just let the opposition stage a total coup.
Yeah.
So how do the advanced strategies we are discussing prevent this specific, very common type of collapse?
This is exactly why tracking alone is dangerous.
It's not enough on its own.
No. The visual imperative must be immediately paired with the final component, structured reflection.
Structured reflection.
The source material we are analyzing contains a really vital directive regarding this.
What does it say?
It explicitly states that tracking must be entirely divorced from moral judgment or self-chastisement.
Divorcing data from morality.
Yes.
That is incredibly difficult for highly ambitious people to do. We are literally wired to view productivity as a moral virtue and rest as a moral failing.
It is extremely difficult, but it is necessary for a resilient system.
So how do we do it?
The text provides a specific methodology to achieve this.
Mm.
We must analyze our failures with curiosity.
Curiosity over judgment.
Yes. When the chain breaks, your immediate instinct will be judgment.
I am lazy. I am undisciplined.
Exactly. You must override that instinct by treating the failure as an anomaly in a laboratory experiment.
Oh, like you're a scientist studying yourself.
Yes. You step back and view yourself objectively using the scientific method.
Okay, so what do you ask?
You ask, why did the system fail yesterday?
Not why am I a failure, but why did the system fail?
Do you see the difference there?
Yes, the language completely shifts the blame from the identity to the architecture.
Precisely. You become a structural engineer inspecting a cracked foundation.
You ask curious diagnostic questions.
Right. Like, did I schedule my high cognitive load task too late in the evening when my executive function was depleted?
Did my temptation bundle lose its potency because I allowed myself the reward outside of the contingency?
Was the environmental friction too high because my workspace was cluttered?
You are hunting for variables, not character flaws.
And once you isolate the variable that caused the failure, you use that exact data point to refine the system for the next day.
So you adjust the schedule, or you upgrade the temptation bundle, or you clear the environment.
This reframing is profound.
It really is. It takes all the sting out of failing.
It transforms a failure from a terminal moral defeat into a highly valuable piece of diagnostic data.
It changes the period at the end of the sentence into a comma.
I love that. Yeah.
It's merely a pause to recalibrate.
Exactly.
Well, a pause to recalibrate. I want to pull all of this together now because the scope of what we've covered today is massive.
We really went deep into the mechanics.
We did. We set out to transition away from the weather mindset of motivation.
Waiting to be struck by inspiration.
Right. And instead, map out the blueprints for a manufactured, highly reliable internal drive.
And we've seen that sustainable motivation is an interlocking system. It's a continuous, dynamic loop.
Right. We start at the surface by mitigating the immediate visceral friction of difficult tasks.
Using temptation bundling.
Hijacking our brain's dopamine prediction error by making our indulgences strictly contingent upon completing our obligations.
Then we stabilize our long-term trajectory by shifting our temporal focus.
Systems over goals.
We deliberately ignore the paralyzing magnitude of our ultimate goals, utilizing them only as a compass.
And pour our entire cognitive focus into executing the daily system with absolute structural integrity.
We anchor those systems in the deepest bedrock of human psychology. Identity.
We stop trying to force behavior through willpower and instead construct a new identity.
Understanding that every execution of our daily system is an undeniable empirical vote.
A vote that proves to our brain exactly who we are becoming.
Finally, we protect the entire architecture from reality by utilizing the visual imperative.
We leverage the Zeigarnik effect through analog tracking.
And when the system inevitably breaks,
we replace the destructive spiral of moral judgment with the scientific objectivity of curious reflection.
it is a phenomenal framework.
It really is. And the source materials we utilize today end with a sentiment that I think elevates this entire conversation from just, productivity hacks to something much deeper.
It really touched on the philosophy of it all.
Yeah. It notes that these practices, these systems, aren't just for efficiency.
The author said, the language you have shadowed today is not just for listening, It is for living.
They are the tools you use to construct a more fulfilling life. They are how you close the agonizing gap between the person you currently are and the person you desperately want to become.
The architecture isn't about doing more things. It is about becoming the ultimate version of yourself.
Exactly. So as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought.
Something to mull over.
I want you to visualize that political election happening in your mind right now.
The polls are open every single minute of every single day.
Look back over the last 24 hours of your life. Look at the tasks you avoided, the systems you executed, the small decisions you made in secret when no one else was watching.
Every single one is a vote.
Based strictly on the empirical data of your actions today. What kind of person did you just vote into power?